Hello guys, welcome back to Pause and welcome back to Parkitect Build. This is part 6 and today we are finishing off the other side of the main street. We do a little bit of work around the waterfront area, just getting that a little bit more finished. And we also do a little bit more to the very front entrance plaza of the park. We added some fountains and things like that to make it look a little bit better. And then at the end of this video we just continue a little bit more work on the mountain that is going to be the centre focal point of this park, the weenie as is referred to in these kind of builds, which I believe is a term that Walt Disney coined. Anyway, so all that's coming up in the rest of this build video. So first of all I'll talk through what we're doing just here. So this is going to become a quirky little candy store. And it's using a few pieces that I've added into the game via mods. So a lot of the stuff that I'm using in this build is stuff that isn't built into the game. It's stuff that other creators have made and made available via mods. So the way that works is there is a website called Parkitect Nexus, and they have a client that you download that links with the game, and then any mods you download from their website are automatically put into the mods folder here on Parkitect. So it kind of works in tandem with the game itself. It gives you some really nice pieces. Now obviously this game is still in early access, it's still in alpha, so a lot of these mods have been around for a while now, so some of them aren't compatible with the latest version of the game, so bear that in mind if you do download any mods, as there are a few that are downloaded that don't actually work and aren't compatible. And there's a few that are still actually active, so you might see when I'm going through the menus that just show up as kind of pink textures. So obviously there's some kind of issue that is rendering those textures in some of the mods. But for the most part they work absolutely brilliantly. So if it ever gets to a stage down the line when the games keep continuously being updated and some of these mods do become out of date and some of the textures don't work, we'll just go back and we'll make some changes to those parts of the park. So, what we're doing out the front, I thought I'd try something a little bit different with this build. And we have kind of like a separate entrance plaza to it. So I want it to feel more like it's like a quirky candy shop that you may find in the middle of nowhere. Like maybe it's run by some kind of witch character or something a little bit out of the ordinary. So that's why I've set it back slightly from the path. We're throwing on a few little pieces on the building just to try and make it look a little bit different to the rest of the standard builds. The windows I did toy around with here, but I think I'll just leave them open, as I just find it looks a little bit nicer like that. And again, it gives it a bit more depth to the build. I play around with a few colours. I'm not too happy with the colour it turns out, kind of like greeny white, so I may go back and change that again at some point, but I'll just try out a few things with that one. So obviously at this moment we're very limited with with what we can put inside shops and restaurants. So a few of the other mods that I have added on this version of the game, we've got a few things that's like extra tables and chairs and things. So you will see those popping out throughout this video in the build of the building that's next to this candy shop. So we still don't have any sort of like shop innards, like if you have like display cabinets and things like that. They're still not in the game, so we just make do at the moment. We're leaving a lot of the empty spaces in these buildings, sort of in preparation for when more items become available, as they will down the line. I'm sure of it. So I do a little bit of work back of house again, as I like to make these parks realistic. So every time I build something, I want there to be a genuine reason why it's there, and real access for staff to get to it. So that's why I keep adding these backstage paths and these entrances, so the staff deliveries can come straight in, no problem, no mither at the end. And I want to try and keep the staff away from the main areas of the park, as it would be in a real Disney style park. All the staff areas that I do build in this game, I'm going to try and hide them behind trees, buildings, and I don't want anywhere in this park to be visible. So in no staff areas I want to be visible from guest areas. That's the aim I'm going for. We'll see how that works out, but that's what I'm going for now. So these orangey yellowy things I'm putting down here are actually another mod that I added into the game, and the kind of path extras. So you can do a kind of path border, so to speak. It's the first time I've ever played with it, so I just sort of toying around with it here. In the end, I do decide not to use it, but for later on and certain builds, it might be quite useful. Maybe a sci-fi area, or if I do a western street, it might be good to put a little pavement down the side. And again, it gives it a little bit of more depth and more texture, as it's sort of half the size of a normal path, so it makes things look a little bit different as you walk around this park, so everything isn't sort of stuck to the grid. So I think later on we'll probably use those a little bit more. Now at this point I was trying to find some kind of decorative items to put on the front of this build. As it is a candy store, I want it to be eye-catching, I want it to be quite different and unique, quite a different building, so I was thinking what kind of flags and things I can put on there. So I sort of try and find a few nice coloured things. Again, I probably will go back and change a few of these, so I'm not 100% happy with it. But at the current stage of this alpha, it's quite limited with the sort of decorations you can choose and things like that in the game. So as more become available, we will obviously add to these buildings as time goes on. So I just make a little entrance plaza out the front, try and make it look nice and like I said, eye-catching before, and I just want to give it an in and out kind of style event as you enter this building. As if this was a real park, they'd be creating like candies, sweets and cakes and things in there. It'd be like they'd be making them as you shop for them kind of thing. So that's what I want it to feel like, a proper little candy factory. I know it's a very small building, but that's what I was going for with this build. So I thought to make it look a little bit different, I haven't used these Asian roof pieces yet, which again is another mod that I added in. So I thought I'll just test them out and see how it looks, and I think it works okay. Again, if we decide to change it at a later date, I might do, but I think it works quite well. As like I said, it is a quirky building, so giving it a quirky roof style kind of fits with the theme. And you're only ever really going to see this building from the front view anyway, as you're never going to be behind it, well the guests are never going to be behind it. Either side of it you have another building, so it is just the front, and I think it works quite well. So again here I'm just trying to find a few little bits like mushrooms and things, just anything that can make it look a little bit more quirky, and some items that we haven't used just yet in the game. And that is where we leave the candy store. So like I said, I may come back to it, I probably will come back to it as more things become available. So obviously if we ever get like a candy theme, a bit like what you had in Roller Coaster Tycoon, where there was massive oversized candy canes and things like that, then obviously we can add to that down the line. Now this next building that we're just starting on here, I wasn't really too sure what I wanted to do with it. So I just put a few little trellises, are they called? Pagodas? I don't know. Whatever these are. I just put a few together to try and figure out a plan. I know I wanted some kind of seating area, and I know I wanted some kind of food offering. So if this was a real park and a real area in the park, I just wanted it to be a place where you could sit around, have a look out over the waterfront and the mountain and the main street, and maybe sit with a coffee, a hot dog, so some kind of little food area that's nice and relaxed. So what I decided to do instead is put a little courtyard path around the edge, as I've just done there. We build the building sort of off to one side. I want to give this a kind of feel as if you were in... If you've ever been to like a Christmas market, like a German Christmas market, these sometimes get set up around Birmingham or Manchester. Again, this is quite specific to the UK, so apologies. But they normally have these kind of wooden shacks set up, which are very much a kind of... It reminds me of like if you went to a ski resort, and they sell kind of hot chocolates and coffees and beer and all that kind of stuff. This was the kind of influence I was taking from this building. Now, it doesn't look very snowy, but I mean, it kind of gives you that idea of what I'm going for with a kind of wooden build. So I find these kind of half pieces that I think look quite nice and make it look quite wooden shack-esque. So that's what we're going for. I do split it off in half inside. That is, again, purely just forward planning for when we have inside building pieces. So like we may get like certain seating areas and counters for taking food and things from, just forward planning in case we ever want to build inside there. So then it was time to find a roof, which is always the fun part of this game, is trying to find a roof that fits. And I wanted it to be quite a low building as well. I didn't want it to be too high. As I've said before, I want every building across this main street to have its own height and identity, and that is again what I was going for here. With the two buildings either side of the candy shop being quite low, it makes that building stand out just a little bit more as well. And that is what I'm going for here. So I'm just trying to put some little features on this building that we've not done yet. So that's why I build this kind of like little overhang to the front entrances, which again we haven't really done that yet. So again, a lot of this main street is just sort of testing how things work. And there we go. There's the roof. So that is the main part of that building done. I just toyed with a few colours to try and make it look a little bit brighter, as I don't want it to look too similar to the toilet building that we already have there on the right hand side of the screen. So I do try a few colours here, so I don't think this is going to be what it ends up with. I don't think I'll leave it into like a grey, because I think that looks a bit too harsh. But as you can see, I do like to make everything look a little bit differently, and that's what I'm doing just here. So in a minute we start building an outside little courtyardy area where I put some tables and chairs. And if this was, like I say, a real park, this would be where you could just grab a little coffee from inside, pop out to the front. You could even buy a breakfast in there. Maybe if it was like a Disney park, it'd be a kind of like a breakfast Starbucksy type place. And that's kind of what we're going for, just to give a few options down the main street. So far what you've got down here, you've got at the very front of the park, you've got a building which has a little outdoor courtyard that kind of serves a few little drinks and things. Over the other side, you've got more of a emporium style building where you've got like some merchandise and sweets and sort of things. Then obviously back to this side, you've got the toilets and cash machines and sort of useful places. Again, over the other side of the main street, we have like an information stand, where we have more food options in there, and then back here where we've got the candy store and this new little coffee shop that I'm making. So it gives you a few options down the main street, and a lot of that you do get in real parks when you enter the sort of the front gates. Because bear in mind, not only is it the entrance, it's also the exit of the park, so you want there to be quite a nice selection of food and drink and shops. So you're getting the people as the first coming in, and you're getting the people as they leave. So I want to try and make it as realistic as possible. Obviously, given the limitations of the alpha, that's what we're aiming for here. So I'm just finishing up the little courtyard area. So I want to put a little wall and a little fence to give it the identity of it being separate to the main street, but it's its own area, and you can still see in and out from both paths. So that's what I was going for. So these are some of the little tables and chairs that I was talking about before. There are wooden versions of these as well, which I've used in a previous building, but these ones give it a kind of more of a less traditional look. So that's why I thought I'd go with those in this build. And again, the colours we're probably going to change as we go on. And here I'm just placing a few sort of coffee, tea shop kind of things. There's like green tea, coffee, hot drinks and soft drinks and sort of things in there. So it's like I say, it's just purely a coffee shop. So again, I put my staff paths in and just have this little area. What I did notice here on the left hand side of the building from this view, you can see that there is an entrance route that goes in. Because it links to a path that's inside the building, it does kind of cross over just there, and you can see the staff actually going in that path. So I do take away that path inside the building because I don't want there to be that entrance. I don't want there to be staff going through walls, because I want to try, like I said, be as realistic as possible. So that's why I took that path out just there. So already they're bringing in their little deliveries. I'm putting the doors on, the sort of fans and everything. Try and make it a bit more realistic. I'd say we are adding these little bits as we go. Okay, so let's have a little look around inside. Apologies that I keep going on to that first person view. It's just quite useful to see how things look from a guest point of view. So obviously built directly into this game isn't a free camera at the moment. So that is a cheese farm, and again another one of the mods that I have added. So here I'm just starting, like I've said before, I want to make there a distinction between the staff areas and the guest areas. And a lot of the time that's how I'm going to do that with trees. And obviously there's going to be a hell of a lot more trees built into this park as we get on, but that is generally what we're going for to separate the two areas. I think I will do some underground tunnels at some point. I believe staff paths can go underground. I do need to double check on that, but I think they can. So a lot of the time I may have underground tunnels for staff, so they can get to and from areas. And obviously we're going to keep using the underground utilities and the little depot areas, as they're very useful for keeping the stock away. I don't want there to be an area of the park where I've got a member of staff walking through carrying a box of pretzels or something like that. I mean, I know it's a game, I know it's not a real place, but still I want it to be as professional as possible. So, and the tools are there, so we might as well use them. So I'm just making a few little enhancements here. In one of the videos I did make changes to this and add the entranceway in here, but for some reason it didn't save, so I thought I'd just go back and do this again. I had a little overhang there as well, as I think it looks quite nice on the building. So that is mainly the building's finished now on Main Street. That is pretty much it. I mean, the shells are in. Obviously in time we will add a lot more detail and a lot more stuff as more parts and pieces become available in the game, but generally that is where we are really with the Main Street. So I just wanted to add a few extra bits to this entrance plaza. It's looking a little bit plain, so we just add a few extra trees, bushes and things in here, and I try a few topiaries, but they don't really fit and I don't want it to look too crowded. And I thought this would be a great place to add some jumping fountains to give it a little bit of depth and texture. So as you walk straight in, you see this nice animated fountain, and I thought then some of these will go there nicely in here as well. So that's what we do. I know it's not very realistic with it being a flower bed, but I think it looks quite nice. So that's what we're going for. So I had a few little maps to the entrance and some screens as well. So if you imagine as you walk in the park, these screens might have the queue times of the day on, show times, and that kind of information. So that's the reason why the screens are there, if you were wondering. And again, I just had a few little lamps around here. I went for the wooden ones. I think it matches the style of the building. Like I said in the last episode, I want to try and keep the path extras kind of themed to the area that they're in. So if the shop has got a certain theme, I want the path extras and lighting and things to fit as well, just to make things look a little bit different. I don't want everything to be standard kind of iron theming. I want everything to have its own identity. So moving away from the main street, then we work up the path. I had a few little extra trees around this area. I want it to look quite like an oasis. I know it is very square, and that is something I haven't picked up on since doing this video, but for now I think I'm going to leave it that way. I may add stuff to it in the future, but for now that is where it's staying. And here I'm just starting very briefly on a path that goes directly through our mountain. And the reason why I'm doing this is this entrance area that I'm just putting out here, fuse some rocks together, is going to be the first area of the park that we start work on. And as I mentioned previously, I want it to be a kind of adventure theme. So I want it to be a kind of exploration, adventure-y type, yeah, that kind of theme. So that's what we're going for. So this entrance area here will basically be the entrance to that zone. So I want it to look like a cave through the mountain. Imagine if this was a real park. Inside there would have a hell of a lot of theming. There'd be some animatronics. You'd walk through, there might be like fire. There might be some kind of like smoke and mist. We may have some shops that we do put in there a bit later on, so you've got something to do as you're walking through that area. And then above you, you'll be able to see up into the mountain. And again, I know it's not very realistic, as mountains don't tend to work like that, but imagine that somebody has carved out areas within there. That's what we're going for in this. So again, it's going to be a slow process and something that we probably will never be able to actually do in the game, but that is my mindset behind what this entrance pathway is going to be. So this will take you straight into an adventure zone, an adventure area, and as you've gone through that mountain, you're already going to be fully immersed in that environment. And that's what we're aiming for here. I want there to be fully immersed areas and areas of the park that you just really feel like you are living it, and you're real and you're in that zone. So that's where we're starting, and that's where we get to for today. So thank you ever so much for watching. There'll be more Parkitect Build coming very, very soon, next couple of days, and we're actually going to get started in our first themed area, which will be this adventure zone. So the next episode we are continuing from the other side of this pathway, where we'll start on the first zone of the park, and I can't wait to get cracking and building. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.